All right, we will call this Wednesday, July 3rd, regular board meeting to order. I want to wish everyone a happy Independence Day weekend, and of course, our friends up in Canada, a belated Independence Day. And I also want to say it's our 1-year anniversary for 3 of our board members. So we want to thank you for stepping up, being a part of this process. And I do have to say, having been board chair here, it's been amazing the work and how quickly you caught on to the work that we do. We are so lucky to have you as part of this board. Thank you. We will now move on to, roll call. And then we'll move on to the land recognition.
Kevin Alltucker.
Here.
Denise Diamond. Here. Lisa Fragola.
Here.
Austin Fuldagi.
Here.
Steve Mattel.
Here.
Zach Mulholland.
Here.
Excellent. We now will move on to land recognition. The land recognition will be read by Dr. Colin Joyce.
Thank you. I'd like to start our meeting with the acknowledgement that the land we are on is the traditional homelands of the Kalapuya people. The Kalapuya were stewards of this very land for over 14,000 years before their traditional way of life was forever disrupted. We start our meeting with humility and reverence for the original inhabitants, the Kalapuya.
Thank you so much. We now have an oath of office, and this is for our appointed student board member. So first off, let me just say that your appointment and your membership to the Lane Community College Board of Education is absolutely critical. We need student voices here at the table, and I want to commend your willingness to serve. Obviously, being a part of this public office carries a certain responsibility, and your responsibility is not limited to any particular area, but applies to the whole institution and the whole district and the students. And your judgment must be based on the needs and desires of students and all peoples, and how that affects your action. And as a board, and as a member of this board, you have an opportunity to voice your individual judgment in determining programs, policies, according to state law and the purposes of the community colleges in regards to education services, but also additionally vocational and technical education programs, collegiate programs, adult education, and community services. And I trust that you'll continue to familiarize yourself with not only your legal and moral responsibilities, but also just the responsibilities. And the best way I can put this is there's learning that happens outside of the classroom. And I hope that this is a great learning opportunity for you in this coming year. So I know that you will continue to carefully examine the laws of the state of Oregon, as well as board policies, and that your knowledge will continue to develop and to grow. Will you please stand and raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear to affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the state of Oregon, and that you will, to the best of your ability, uphold board policies and faithfully perform the duties of a member of the Board of Education for Lane Community College during your term of office? And you may answer, I do.
I do.
Excellent. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Is there anything you'd like to say in this time?
No, I'm really glad to be here, and this is going to be a really big learning opportunity. So I can't wait to see what happens.
Excellent. Thank you. Next is I would like to take an opportunity to introduce the new OCCA Executive Director, Abby Lee. Abby, if you wouldn't mind coming up to the podium so that everyone on Zoom can hear.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me and giving me a little bit of space in your board. I won't take much time, but it really is my honor to be here. I'm Abby Lee, and I just started this position on Monday, so I'm really excited. Prior to that, I've spent 25 years at Treasure Valley Community College, and so my life's work has been student success. I was the vice president of college and public relations, and worked really hard to build student programs, student opportunities, particularly through an equity lens. And so everything that you see that OCCA stands for, in particular with leading with racial diversity, I support. And I am so excited to continue this work and to be working with the 17 community college presidents and the 17 board members on this board. We are so lucky in Oregon that we absolutely have the smartest of the smart. We have college presidents who know what it is to help students and to create opportunities. And I'm just, when you look at subject matter experts, we have this academic think tank at our state, and I'm so excited to work with this board and to move things forward. A little bit of my background, I just completed a doctorate in public policy and administration, and I did my dissertation on community college boards and why people run for community college boards in Oregon in particular. So
Why do we?
it's myriad reasons, but interesting. So I looked at the role of ambition theory or recruitment theory. Are you ambitious candidates or are you recruited? And typically, most of the ones who at least completed the survey were recruited to these positions. And so as we think about that lens of who should be serving on these boards and are we representing our communities, that's a really important question that I didn't actually answer. I have a lot of future research, other things that other people should think about. But I just want to offer that, again, this is so exciting for me to continue this work. And I look forward to working with you in particular. And OCCA is responsible, obviously, for advocating for dollars for our community college. But in addition, I think it's really important that we continue to support and scaffold our boards, our elected boards, through board training and through opportunities to connect with other colleges around the state. So those will be many of my priorities. But again, I'm so grateful to be here, and I look forward to getting to know each of you better. And I hope that OCCA will be an important resource for Lane Community College. And thank you, President Bolger, for inviting me and giving me space. And Austin, thank you for your time. Austin will be, as you know, our incoming board chair. So he and I are spending a lot of time together. And I've really been grateful for his passion and his leadership and his willingness to ask hard questions. We've spent some time talking about equity. We've spent a lot of time talking about what OCCA should be doing and a little bit of my background. And so Austin is not afraid to ask hard questions. You should be very proud of that. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I also would offer that I think Austin has some insight too that he might share.
So,
Thank you.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, I need a motion and a second for adoption of the agenda.
I move to approve. Second.
All right, it's been moved and approved. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Any abstention? Seeing none. Any responses to the information requests, questions? I believe it was a question about the Gallup survey that was brought up in the previous board meeting. And thank you, Shane, for answering those questions. Any further comments or questions?
No, I appreciated the way that the information was formatted. It was easily understandable. So thank you, Shane, if you're watching.
I know Shane will eventually watch. I'm just kidding. No. Thank you again. Thank you, Shane, for that information. Any further questions, comments? Seeing none, moving on. All right, just want to point out equity lens and the questions that we should definitely be asking as we pursue our actions as a board. Be sure to read those over when you have a chance, and we will move on to public comment. And we have anyone signed up?
Eric Kim.
Oh, yes.
Good evening, Lane Community College Board of Education, Dr. Bolger. My name's Eric Kim. I teach psychology in the social science division. I'm here to talk about what students learn in social sciences and psychology. There are many unconscious and automatic processes that influence our thinking and feelings, making them difficult to notice. 2 months ago, I had a visual illusion where a single shade of gray divided by a line led to the perception of 2 shades of gray. Last month, the outgroup homogeneity effect describes the tendency to perceive members of the in-group as diverse, whereas members of the out-group as homogeneous. For example, all of us Oregonians, we're all different, but those people from California, they're all the same. This month, when we identify with a group, their behavior influences how we feel about ourselves, which can influence how we evaluate information about those groups. For example, if a person considers themselves a U of O Duck fan, when the Ducks win, people say, "We won." However, when the Ducks lose, people say, "They lost." We won, they lost. This inconsistency is called basking in reflected glory. Saying we won psychologically brings success closer to us. It makes us feel better. Saying they lost psychologically distances ourselves from failure. It makes us feel better. When our identity is connected to groups, we can be biased when evaluating information about those groups. Negative information about a group associated with who we are makes us feel bad about ourselves. Regardless of how accurate that negative information is, we can feel better about ourselves by dismissing it as irrelevant, disinformation, fake news, whatever you want to call it. Likewise, positive information about a group associated with who we are provides an emotional lift, and we readily accept it, regardless of how accurate it is. The evaluation of information is based on feelings rather than analysis. Learning about basking in reflected glory makes it easier to notice these inconsistencies. Being inconsistent and biased is easy because it makes us feel good. It requires no training, no learning, no challenge of your existing beliefs. Consistency is important for good leadership, successful relationships, being civil, accurate scientific knowledge, and the development of expertise in critical thinking. Being consistent is hard, but it makes you a better person and a better thinker. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other public comment? And nothing online. Excellent. We'll move on to the president's report. Dr. Bulger.
Yes, before I give my report, I want to acknowledge that there was a tragic accident yesterday. There were some individuals, leadership from the Oregon Student Association, which is very supportive of community colleges in the state. And it was a really tragic accident resulting in deaths. And I'd like to just start with a moment of silence for the individuals who passed. Thank you. I want to express my sincere gratitude to the Board of Education for your unwavering support throughout this past year. Your dedication to LCC serves as a positive example for our college community, enabling us to achieve our best work. Tonight, we extend a warm welcome to Sophie Gibson, Student Government Association President and Student Trustee, as well as to Dr. Abby Lee, Executive Director of the Oregon Community College Association, who is visiting Lane in her new role. As we transition into a new academic and fiscal year, it's a great time to reflect on the accomplishments of the previous year. LCC's core mission is education and training, and in 2024, a total of 1,443 students received associate degrees and certificates. Among them, 51% were career technical education students, 49% were transfer students, and 2% were GED recipients. Notably, 40% of graduates earned multiple awards. Our diverse student body included first-generation college students, 54%, Pell Grant recipients, 50%, and Oregon Promise Grant recipients, 22%. Additionally, veterans and their dependents made up 6% of the graduating class. The average age of our graduates was 27 years, spanning from 17 to 69 years old. Commencement took place on June 15th. With program celebrations throughout the week to honor our graduates' achievements. Reflecting on our priorities from the past year, LCC has much to celebrate. We fostered a shared understanding among stakeholders regarding our fiscal condition, laying the groundwork for both short-term and long-term actions. The board received multiple and multi-year forecasts and quarterly updates, ensuring transparency and informed decision-making. Remarkably, college enrollment has consistently trended upward since winter 2023, benefiting Lane County and beyond by serving more students and generating new revenue. The Gallup Climate Survey results indicated improved employee engagement. Thanks to the support of the LCC Foundation, we successfully launched the LCC Alumni Network and Capital Campaign, which you'll learn more about tonight. These achievements are a testament to the dedicated efforts of our students, faculty, classified professionals, and managers. Looking ahead, we recognize that there's more work to be done. In the coming year, we'll implement a thoughtful and responsible budget approved by the board in June as we continue building upon the foundation we have begun to strengthen our college. In closing, I want to acknowledge that July is Disability Pride Month, honoring the lives, experiences, and ongoing challenges faced by the disabled community. Additionally, it's also National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month, recognizing the strengths of people of color and their need for culturally relevant mental health support. And that's my report.
Thank you so much. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Any items that need to be pulled from the consent agenda?
I would like to pull item G.
Item G. Okay. Any other items?
I just have a comment. Is that allowed?
I mean,
It's a positive comment.
excellent. I will, then I have to allow it.
Okay. I've just been impressed with how the Black Cultural Initiative folks have addressed all of the concerns.
Yes,
And I just wanted to give them a shout out for that.
absolutely. Excellent. So we have, thank you for that. Item G has been pulled. Any other items? If I get a motion and a second for the remaining items to pass for the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the remaining items.
Second.
Excellent. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Any abstention? Seeing none, we'll move on to item G then of the consent agenda. Steve, you pulled this. Yeah.
So I do this with some hesitation because I know that this is, been moving this forward inch by inch, and folks are probably anxious to get this finished, and I haven't given you any advance warning. So, but I was thinking about this today, reviewing the documentation. I have one outstanding question that I wanted to bring to everybody's attention and see what we might be able to do to address it before moving forward. So the green, generally all the the main deal points all seem fine to me. I continue to have a concern about noise, potential noise, that is, right? Because, and when you read about, I have read about pickleball installations or courts or whatever it is going in all over the country. They're super popular. And then equally now there has been a significant number of complaints raised by the neighbors, right? And I was sitting on my front porch, and there's a pickleball thing, and it could have been Brett playing. We discovered lately that just like a half a mile, 3/4 of a mile away, and it wasn't bothersome to me, but I was amazed that I could hear it on that far away. And I have concerns that this one might pose, problems for our faculty and students. Right? People be playing all throughout the day and the evening. And what if we were to get a complaint from faculty or students saying that it was upsetting their, ability to learn? So I don't have exactly, I don't know what it is precisely we would want to do to address it. And my thought is, include some language in there that should we have that, should that complaint arise sometime after the installation's complete, that we have the right to, require them to install a wall or some kind of, sound barrier. That's where I'm at right now. I haven't really thought about it beyond that, but I hesitate to approve this at this point until we've, somehow addressed the noise issue.
Do you want to respond before? Okay, go ahead, Lisa.
So Kara, is this a timely issue for, I was under the impression this needed to be approved by a certain time for matching funds?
Yes, my understanding is the pickleball club is waiting on this contract approval to get $750,000 from, I can't remember if it's the city or the county. I believe it's the city, but they need the commitment of the years in order to move forward with that. So they're waiting on this agreement to go forward with that. And I can certainly bring forward to them that we add some language if there are complaints that we need to collaboratively. I'm not sure how much the cost of a wall or what that would be, but if we receive complaints, adding some language. Sorry.
Zach, go ahead.
Do we know what the expected decibel levels would be in classrooms closest to the facility?
I'm not sure if I'm just slowly eyeballing Jennifer in the back because she's fabulous. And I've actually asked her this question and she had some good insight, and I'm not sure if she, would be able to speak to that, but I know she'll have a good comment.
Not really, Steve. I had always just assumed that since it's so close to 30th, that the noise from 30th would kind of drown it out.
Yeah.
And that it's so far away from any classrooms. But I hear what you're saying, how you live a half to a quarter mile away from a pickleball court and you can hear it. So
Yeah, I'm not saying that there will be one, but it's more like, well, what if there is? It would be nice to have a mechanism already laid out to address it as opposed to addressing it at that point.
Denise.
What data do we have that lets us know what other, since pickleball courts are so popular in so many different environments across the country, there ought to be data somewhere, right, that says how different communities or areas address noise factors. Do we have any of that information?
We can certainly ask the club for information because they may have a lot more information that we haven't, not something I've looked at or Jennifer has.
Steve. Oh, I'm sorry. Kevin hadn't had a chance to speak. Go ahead.
Thanks. I think the board brought up some concerns around noise early on in the conversation. So, and so I'm glad Steve brought it back up because I think it's important. I do agree with Jennifer, kind of my horseback sense that the noise probably won't be a problem, but if it is, I think we should have some sort of general process by which the pickleball club would initiate a sound engineering study, quantify the problem, and then be responsible for mitigating any problem that might arise. I don't think that'll happen, but I think it's good that we have that language.
So, Steve.
Following up really on what Lisa said, so Lisa asked this question, how, timely, do we need to pass this tonight? Or you said that they're waiting on this to get $750,000, but is there some deadline by which, if they don't get the answer from us in a timely way that they'll foreclose on that? I certainly wouldn't want to prevent that, but if it turned out that, that we could wait another 2 weeks, we're getting back together then, I think it's in 2 weeks or something like that. So perhaps the time is there. That's the question.
Yeah, and I can reach out to her. They're just anticipating tonight, but if we need the 2 weeks to go through and add that language for the board to feel comfortable with that, if there's a possibility of doing that in 2 weeks, that would probably be helpful as opposed to, since there's not a meeting until later, that would be good. But I do think they're hoping this month to have that rectified. I don't know their timeline when they lose that funding. So I can find that out from them, but they were hopeful for this one. But I can tell them we need to add this and come back in 2 weeks if there's a way to make a motion in the meeting in 2 weeks.
There would be a possibility for the board to have a special meeting. It could happen before, is that right, Celia? It could happen before, say, the retreat.
Lisa.
If I'm recalling correctly, they were actually on a fairly tight timeline and they needed us to do this sooner than later. And we don't meet in August and we do not have any meetings scheduled except to do potentially on the 17th to interview candidates for an open seat and then our retreat. And so I have a lot of concerns about waiting to do this. I mean, they've worked with us on every issue that we had. They need to move forward for very legitimate reasons. And, I work on campus. I spend a lot of time on campus. I've never been in a classroom or a building where the windows open. Are there windows that open? I don't even hear the noise from 30th. I really don't think it's going to be an issue. And I personally feel like we should move this forward tonight so that we don't jeopardize the matching funds that they have.
All right. So just prerogative of the chair here. So we have you make a motion and a second to move forward, or we can table. These are the two actions that we can take. Lisa.
I move that we approve the pickleball agreement.
All right. Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Would you like to speak on the motion?
I think I already expressed my opinion. Thank
Excellent.
you.
I'll just state a quick opinion, which is that, I agree that being close to 30th Avenue, I think that will, I think that's a big, I think there's some drowning out of the noise that can happen there. But I also want to just state that our campus has had a lot of construction, happening on campus too, which is a lot of noise. And I want to thank obviously the students as well as the faculty and classified professionals who have had to deal with that noise. And I think that that we have the capacity to be able to have these facilities. So yeah, any further discussion on the motion? Okay.
Yeah, I just, I think I agree with Lisa. We brought this up kind of at the 11th hour. And I think we should protect the college in some way. If it does become a problem, which I don't think it will, but I'm not a sound engineer. So I won't be supporting the motion.
Okay. Steve.
Just to add on, I agree. There potentially is some urgency. I don't know actually precisely what that is and what kind of information might be adequate to sort of, to kind of allay the concern. I'm not sure quite what that is, but what I was hoping is that we could get those things resolved in time for to tack this on to the July 17th meeting or the retreat, one or the other, but both of which are about 2 weeks from now, so that the delay in any case is relatively insignificant.
Dr. Joyce, was there something you want to add?
Yes, Grant Matthews just responded that pickleball generates 40 to 70 decibels and trees are being found to block the sound successfully. And I know he's been looking online at the same time too and getting similar.
I have a whole list of ChatGPT recommendations.
Thank you, Grant, for watching. Zach.
In terms of our buildings, so we have these new buildings going in kind of closest to the fields. Do we have any sense what type of sound would be heard inside the building? If people are, testing out drilling in people's teeth, like I assume the drill is going to be louder than the pickleball, but
we have triple glazed glass. You can't hear anything outside. I've been in that building enough times to they're running lifts outside, shooting things off. It's not going to impact that. I'm on that design committee. I will pass this information on to them and keep that engaged. But yes, the ChatGPT does have a lot of that. We were looking at it as well.
And
I don't foresee it, we're on building 7, closest to it, probably. You can't hear things out in the parking lot very much in that office. So
Go ahead, Zach.
and if there was additional data that we could actually get in the next 2 weeks that would ameliorate these concerns, I'd be willing to, hold off 2 weeks. But I want this project to move forward.
Just to be clear, I wasn't expecting us to resolve the fear in 2 weeks. I think that could take a lot longer. It's more to get the other side to commit to mitigating it should it become a problem later on.
Oh, Kara, go ahead.
And just for information, this agreement is already in place. What this adjustment does, it's an existing agreement where the pickleball club has already been given authorization by previous board, this board, but this is amending an already existing agreement. So if we withdrew that, then we'd have to, implement the penalties where we have to pay. So what we're proposing is adjustments to the existing agreement that's going to allow them to have a 20-year agreement instead of the shorter term for them to capture the more money. So keep that in mind too, as information.
Excellent. All right, I think we can move forward to a vote. All those in favor of, we'll do a roll call vote on this one. So roll call vote.
Kevin Alltucker,
Nay.
Denise Diamond,
Yay.
Lisa Fragola,
Aye.
Austin Fulnagi,
Aye.
Steve Mattel,
Nay.
Zach Mulholland.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you for that discussion. I need to learn how to play pickleball. Anyway, moving on to our action items. The first action item is the 24-25 board chair and vice chair election. How we'll move forward with this is one position at a time. We will have a nomination. The person accepts that nomination or declines that nomination. And then and we can do as many nominations as we want, quite frankly, but there has to be a motion and a second for that nomination to move forward for a vote. So any questions in regards to the process or All right, Lisa.
Clarifying question.
Yes.
So didn't we already have two people express interest in the last meeting? Were those the nominations and now we're doing a motion?
So my understanding of Robert's Rules of Order is that the nomination has to happen in a board meeting as opposed to a work session. So we did declare interest, obviously, and I believe they can indicate their interest again. But we do have to have a nomination during the board meeting.
And so you're seeking a nomination separate from a motion?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Lisa.
I move to nominate Zach Mulholland for board chair.
Excellent. Any other nominations?
I'll move to nominate Kevin Altucker for the same position.
Okay. We have two nominations. Any additional I apologize. I went out of order. Zach, do you accept your nomination?
Yes.
Kevin, do you accept your nomination?
Yes.
Excellent. Are there any motions? Lisa.
I move that the board elect or appoint Zach Mulholland to be chair of the board for the 24-25 year.
Is there a second?
I second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. We will do a roll call vote.
Can I speak to my motion, please?
Yeah, my apologies. Lisa, go ahead.
Yes, so I'd just like to say that I think we have two excellent candidates for the chair, and I thank both of you for stepping up. I am supporting Zach because I think we have a situation where we don't have an ongoing vice chair. And even though I was interested in doing that, I don't think it's probably the best decision for the board and for myself personally. So, but I know that Zach has experience in chairing using Robert's rules and in serving on public boards and commissions. And I think that will be important since there will not be someone moving from the chair to the vice chair position.
Steve, did you want to speak on the motion or point of order?
I guess it's a point of order. It just sort of feels a little odd that I think the way that things are set in motion now, there's an opportunity to speak and in Zach's favor or about Zach, but we will complete that entirely without any opportunity to say anything about the other candidate, Kevin. And that just sort of feels a little unfair that there's no opportunity to say anything about Kevin until we've completed a process with Zach.
Understood. The process that I was given has been done before in the past. I know last year we kind of had an interesting situation where there was a kind of a nomination and a motion, and then we had to just vote on that. So that same thing kind of happened last year too. And I want to really understand where you're coming from there. But my understanding and how it was brought to my attention was that there's nominations, but there has to be a board action in order for the appointment to go through. Brett, I wanted to lean on you on this in regards to any board policies around this. I do not believe there is any.
No, you're correct. It takes a board action. It's been handled differently by boards over the years. So it's really the board's prerogative how you elect your leadership, but it takes a vote, an action vote for it to be official. My recommendation, once you get past this year, is that you would put it in your board operating documents so that there is a recommended procedure for future boards. It's really up to them whether or not they choose to follow the recommended procedures, but then you have something outlined for future boards to follow. But as a process, you normally do nominations, and then it does take an action vote. So you would typically make a motion for that.
All right. Anything else in regards to the motion? Lisa.
Is there any reason why Steve couldn't speak to why he thinks Kevin is the best choice now?
I would allow it personally. Yeah.
Good idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you. Yeah. Well, I'll just say a few things. It seems reasonable, right, that both candidates get an opportunity.
Absolutely. Yeah.
To have their, to have some, thank you, have their qualifications kind of aired a little bit in front of everybody before we take a vote. So, I'll just say a few things that this year I believe, are going to be launching the foundation will be launching a capital campaign, moving closer to a formal piece of that. Kevin is very well known in the community, especially amongst the business community, and that can be a real asset for the institution to have him as our chair. So I thought that this makes this year particularly a good fit for Kevin's experience. That was one particular thing. I've only known Kevin for a year, but in the year that I have gotten to know him, I see him as a consensus builder. That's not to say that this is not to say that Zach's not, but I'm just talking specifically about Kevin at this point. I see him as an excellent communicator, and I believe he has earned the trust and respect of our president and staff, and so would do a really nice job working with them, but also working with the entire board. So, and like Lisa, by the way, I want to say that I have lots of positive things to say about Zach as well. Lisa said them, I'm not going to repeat them, and so but I did want to air some qualifications of Kevin's.
Absolutely.
Good job.
Great job. To the motion, I think both individuals are incredible board members, and if I can chair anybody, anybody could choose my personal opinion can chair better than me. But anyway, moving on, we have a motion and a second. We will do a roll call vote for that motion.
Kevin Alltucker,
Nay.
Denise Diamond,
Yay.
Lisa Fragola,
Aye.
Austin Fulnagi,
Yay.
Steve Mattel,
Nay.
Zach Mulholland.
All right. It's been moved and seconded and passed. I'm now going to pass on the gavel.
Actually, you want to switch seat? I don't care.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Of course.
I don't get to hit the silly hand, right?
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes.
So we know that from the last meeting, that they were willing to share.
we have to do the second part
Do
of
we
this.
need to do a vote, or is it an automatic?
Yeah, there's a second part of this, which is the vice chair.
So just first off, just want to say thank you to my colleagues for this honor to serve as the chair of the board. I look forward to creating a positive working environment that really builds towards consensus and makes sure that everyone's voice feels heard in the process. And with that, look for nominations for the vice chair position.
I nominate Kevin Alltucker for the vice chair position.
Should Steve?
And I'll second.
Second from Steve. Any other nominations?
Point of order, accepting of the nomination.
Yes.
All right.
Any other nominations for vice chair? Okay, not seeing any. We could vote by acclamation. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed, say nay. Okay, and it looks like it is unanimous. Kevin, welcome to the vice chair role. I look forward to working with you.
Same. Look forward to working with you.
Great. Moving to the next item, board retreat agenda. Former chair, or is there someone that can help walk us through the board agenda, or are we just the retreat agenda? And then we can vote on it, or what's the next process for approving this?
Yeah, if we're able to pull up that document, greatly appreciate that. While it's being pulled up, a big part of what we wanted to focus on, and this was a recommendation from Mike Geister and our previous board member in regards to how we should definitely have a focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and have a presentation discussion about that during the board retreat. There was several other things that came up in regards to topics as well as things that the board wanted to do during the board retreat. One of those included, hey, we have a new health science building. We'd love to take a tour of it and love to see where we're at with that. So there will be after the morning break, a new building tour. During lunch, we will obviously have an opportunity to sit together, eat together, talk about what we just experienced, and then go into board development and review of board self-assessment results. We then go into an afternoon break, and then we discuss the 24-25 President's Goals. And then we will do a retreat review as well as follow-up items. Now, I know that there's not too many topics here, but I remember in the retreat last year that we had a lot of topics and we tried to condense that in a really short period of time. So we really wanted to focus on these particular areas that were mentioned in previous board meetings. And that is the main reason for the setup and alignment there. Former Vice Chair Lisa, would you like to make any additional comments on this?
Yeah, I'd like to say we basically followed previous formats of agendas, and we chose not to have a consultant in this meeting because of the expense that represented to the board last year. And we feel like we have some exceptional staff and a great cabinet that the president has built in the last year, and look forward to having some of them work with us on the diversity, equity, and inclusion presentation. It'll be an opportunity to hear about ideas that are happening, what the president is working on, and for the board to respond to some of that, as well as thinking about our strategic plan and goals around these topics.
Excellent. And Chair, to answer your question, yes, this would need a motion and a second.
And then just to clarify, the new building tours is going to be of the health professions building and not the iTech building?
Correct. The health professions building. Yeah, correct.
Okay. Look for a motion to approve the agenda for the retreat.
So moved.
And a second. Moved and seconded. Moved to vote by acclamation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed say nay. And moves forward unanimously. Perfect. Moving on to the Building 12 demolition bond project. Do we have any presentation on this at all tonight, or is it this, or are we just moving forward on what was presented 2 weeks ago?
I believe that we're moving forward with what was presented, but if you have questions of the Vice President.
Did anybody have any questions or concerns regarding this action item based upon the materials that we were presented on 2 weeks ago? Austin?
Just briefly, I don't know if we were also to discuss the priority list as well.
Not tonight, I don't think.
Not tonight. No.
Gotcha.
Okay. Steve.
I just wanted to acknowledge that I asked a question via email and of Jennifer and Stephanie. Jennifer responded in email. I'm satisfied, so I plan to vote in support of the action.
Now I want to know what you guys talked about.
It was in the documents. I'd asked about, so I followed up on the question I asked during the work session, I guess 2 weeks ago, on are there basically any other things that we could do to resolve the potential snow loading right on the rooftop and avoid that expense. And the response was essentially this seemed that the staff really felt like this was the best path forward.
Yeah, this definitely seems like a critical project, and this is the quickest timeline we can do it. So happy to approve this and see it move forward. So with that, I'll look for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and look for by acclamation. All those in favor say aye. Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And any opposed? Okay, and a vote passes unanimously. Okay, next up, we have a number of discussion items. So first up is the high density tax exemption. So Carol, if you would be step up to the podium and give me a presentation, please.
Yeah, I have some slides, so I'll just do an introduction while those get pulled up. So my name is Katie Carroll. I'm a housing analyst for the city of Springfield. I'm joined by our finance director, Nathan Bell, in the audience, who can help answer any questions you may all have. Thank you for having us tonight and putting us on your agenda. So here tonight to talk to you about a property tax exemption program that the city recently adopted that we're calling the Housing Diversity Tax Exemption. So not high density, though. We're talking multiple unit housing. Calling it HDTE for short. You may already be familiar with this, though, as the multiple unit property tax exemption, or MUPD. That term floats around quite a bit. The city did send a letter to the board requesting support for this program. The reason for that being that under state law, in order for it to apply to the full tax amount and not just the city's share of taxes, the city needs the support of at least 51% of the levy, including the city, for that program. Next slide, please. So just first wanted to go over some quick background information on this. So this is one of several different property tax exemption programs that the state allows cities to adopt to incentivize various types of housing. We're aware of at least 8 other cities across the state that have this program, including 3 in Lane County, Eugene, Cottage Grove, and Florence. This particular property tax exemption incentivizes development of new multiple unit housing near transit and in core areas. Under state law, there are kind of several different requirements. One of them is this can't be used for transient accommodations, so hotels, motels, short-term rentals. It really needs to be used for permanent housing. And then another requirement is that projects have to include a public benefit, and that's defined by the city. So I'll get into that in a little bit also. Next slide, please. So before I talk about that, just want to talk briefly about why the city pursued this property tax exemption. So as I'm sure we're all aware, Springfield, like many communities in the county and across the state, is having challenges related to housing. In particular, Springfield has a really low vacancy rate. The rental vacancy rate as of the 2022 census was just 1.6%. For some context, a healthy rental vacancy rate is generally considered to be more like 5%. So obviously, when we don't have enough housing, we're looking at a higher demand than a supply. Ultimately, that drives up prices and makes it more unaffordable for people to move to or remain in the community. And we are seeing the effects of that in Springfield. Almost half of Springfield's renters are considered cost burdened, which means that they pay 30%, more than 30% of their income on housing expenses. In addition to just not having enough housing units, Springfield also has a lack of diversity in the types of housing we have available in the market. So primarily detached single unit dwellings. Multiple unit housing makes up only about 16% of Springfield housing. And when we don't have a lot of variety in housing, that again impacts people's ability to find housing at a price that meets their needs, but also at a size that meets their needs. So those are kind of the 2 primary drivers behind the city looking into this: is more housing overall and greater diversity in housing types. However, there is this secondary goal, which is long-term property tax revenue generation as well. So Springfield has made progress towards meeting its housing needs in the last few years, but that's certainly not been the trend over the last few decades. So we're kind of at a deficit. And the market conditions, although we've seen housing built, are really tough right now. Land costs are high, construction costs are high, and interest rates are, and all of that kind of combines to make it really challenging for these types of projects to be financially feasible, or to pencil is kind of the term people use. And so if a project can't pencil, it's not going to get built, and the city and other taxing districts ultimately lose out on property tax revenue that could generate kind of in perpetuity after a property tax exemption expires. So we're hoping that a financial incentive like this will make these projects more feasible to build. Next slide, please. So this is an application-based program, so not every new proposed multiple unit housing project would get a property tax exemption. There are several criteria that someone needs to meet. The ones I have listed are kind of the big ones. There are more in the guidelines. So first, someone needs to be building at least 5 new units. Springfield's really looking at this for that denser apartment style housing. So it doesn't include middle housing, and 5 units minimum matches the city's development code definition of what multiple unit housing is. Projects also would need to be located in one of the areas that the city has designated for this tax exemption to be available. And I'll show a map of that on the next slide. And then I mentioned earlier public benefits. So there are kind of 3 different ways that the city has available that someone could meet that requirement of the program. The first is we have a set of clear and objective criteria where if someone can kind of meet minimum standards in 2 to 3 areas, they would satisfy that requirement. Those categories are shown on the slide on the table. So they're kind of a variety of different areas that it touches in terms of public benefits. A second option that someone could choose would be to pay a fee in lieu of actually including that public benefit in the project to the city. The city would then use those funds to complete ADA accessibility projects in public facilities. So like completing curb ramp projects, for example, which we have an abundance of that need to be done. And then the third option would be for someone to propose one or more public benefits to include in their project that kind of don't meet that clear and objective criteria. Those applications would be elevated to the city council to determine, is this a public benefit, what someone's proposing, and then is it sort of sufficient to warrant, getting a tax exemption? And then otherwise applications would be reviewed by staff because they would be clear and objective. Next slide, please. So these are the areas of Springfield that City Council has chosen to have available for this tax exemption. Under state law, we have to draw boundaries for this, and those areas have to be near transit or core areas. So all of these areas are within a 1/4 mile of transit, and they all allow multiple unit housing development. Next slide, please. So the scope of this property tax exemption, it's a 10-year property tax exemption beginning at completion of construction. And then on year 11, that housing would come onto the tax rolls and be taxed in perpetuity for, as long as that housing exists. It's not a full exemption of property taxes. It includes new residential improvements, new parking for residents. So if there is existing parking or in a mixed use development, commercial parking, that would not be included. And then it includes new ground floor commercial space that's part of a mixed use building when it's deemed a public benefit. So not in every case. What it does not include is land. So if you're thinking about someone building housing on a vacant lot, it would be taxed as though that housing wasn't built until that property tax exemption expires. And then it doesn't include any existing improvements or other new non-residential improvements that I didn't mention. And again, this only applies to the city's share of taxes unless at least 51% of the levy signs on. And this is kind of a structure that the state has for other property tax exemptions. For example, the low income rental housing property tax exemption has this similar requirement, and this board did support that for the city when it adopted it in 2018. Next slide, please. Okay, so thinking a little bit about the impact of it. Again, it's a 10-year property tax exemption of some taxes. This is really challenging to estimate impact because a lot of this is dependent on market forces that are, outside the city's control. And also, as we've all seen over the last couple of years, the market has been challenging to predict for housing. But based on recent development trends in Springfield, we could anticipate maybe 1 to 2 projects per year that would be found eligible for this based on what we're seeing in terms of multiple unit housing development. However, City Council did recognize that, there's a lot that is outside of the city's control and prediction. So did provide in the program the opportunity for them to pause it, put a cap on it, or end it at any time. So there is kind of an avenue for dealing with if the city should have concerns or another taxing district with the impact of it. And I think that's my last slide. Yep. All right. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Awesome.
2 questions, then a comment. The first question is, so it's a city rule that 51%, you mentioned 51%. And so it's a city, not a county ordinance, right?
Correct. Yeah. So City of Springfield adopted it, and it applies to any taxing district that would be collecting taxes from that property.
So like Willamette Lane,
Willamette Lane,
K-12,
school district.
Yep, exactly. Okay, good stuff, good stuff. And then, and so none of those boundaries are outside of the unincorporated zone of Springfield.
So some of them are outside of city limits, but inside the UGB. I'm trying to come up with on the spot. Why can't I come up
Urban
with
growth boundary.
urban growth boundary? Thank you. I just shorthand it so often. And so one of the requirements of the program is that a property would have to annex into the city before it would be eligible. So some of those areas in Glenwood, a lot of that is unannexed right now.
Understood. Excellent. And my basic comment is that as a housing provider, I will double check with the Ethics Commission. I'm sure that there's no actual nor potential conflict of interest for me. I'll double check that before we actually take action. So yeah, okay. I see Brett shaking his head. So that's good enough for me.
I've got Kevin and then Lisa and then Steve.
Yeah, thanks, Katie and Neil. Nathan, thanks for being here. If I understand your presentation correctly, you're just asking us to kind of bless this and support the property tax exemption.
So what it would look like from the board, which I don't believe we'd be prepared for tonight, would be adoption of a resolution in support. So we do have draft language that we could share, but that would be kind of a later item for you
Yeah,
guys. I would
okay.
assume.
And I wouldn't be interested in getting into the rabbit hole of the ideological pluses and minuses of property tax exemption. So we're just being asked at some point to support this.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Lisa?
Thank you. So am I understanding correctly that in order to qualify, applicants only need to meet one of those clear and objective criteria?
For the public benefit?
Yeah.
No. So if they were doing the clear and objective pathway, it would be 2 to 3. So getting a little bit more into the weeds, we have kind of higher priority and lower priority. So if they did at least one of the higher priority, then it would be 2. Or if they did the all lower priority, then it would be 3.
And if they meet the clear and objective criteria, they don't need the city council's approval?
Correct.
Okay, that's a very nice approach. And when would you need the resolution adopted by?
So at this point, the city has received support from both school districts and the county, which gets us over that 51%. So we could proceed now with it. So I think in terms of the city's request at this point, I think is just, it's always great to have full support, but it doesn't necessarily put you all on a timeline.
Okay, because as you might have heard already, we don't meet in August, and so we may not have an opportunity to adopt a resolution until later in the fall. That being said, I am supportive of this approach and think it's a good way to encourage much needed housing. Thanks.
Steve?
I also am supportive in conceptually. I have a few questions that I think are going to reveal the fact that I didn't fully listen as clearly as I needed to.
No
I
worries.
apologize for that. in
We've been
advance.
talking about it for years at the city, so.
Yeah, so my understanding, and I'm asking you to correct me where I'm wrong, is that, the city, you have the right to basically remove your taxes off of the lot, and you are off of whatever the proposed developments are. And you are requesting us to sort of relieve our tax burden on that property as well? Or is that not quite accurate?
So it kind of depends on the particular situation of a property. If it's a vacant property, then it's just kind of business as usual as something's built. It's just that we wouldn't be collecting new tax revenue for that 10-year property tax exemption period. There are circumstances where it would be lowering what the district receives for that 10-year period of time if there were existing improvements that were knocked down for redevelopment. I think at that point, we're looking at if someone's redeveloping, it's probably, the improvements are not worth a lot at that point. But so what it would be asking is for the taxing district to, maybe, are you going to say this more eloquently? Come up to save me. It would be asking the taxing district to agree to not collect that property tax that would have been generated by the new improvements for that 10-year period of time.
so there could be a case, I'll follow up with a question real quick, where let's just say we declined, let's just say, and the city of Springfield could move forward and say that you're going to, eliminate for 10 years your tax, right? But we are going to keep ours in place. Is that an option?
Yeah.
So we've met the 51% threshold. So for those tax code areas where these properties are, everyone will be foregoing that tax.
Okay, so that's what the 51% is about. If 51% of those whatever taxing districts, I don't have the right language, decide to remove their.
It's already happened.
It's already happened. So
74%. We're here, we would love to have your support. First and foremost, it's for informational purposes and giving an opportunity to ask us questions. We'll be moving forward with this program. We've met that threshold. And so it's.
I understand. So I'm trying to get clear on how it works. So when and that helps a bit. So you have what you need. It would be nice to layer our approval on top, but one way or the other, this has basically been decided, and we will not be able to collect our taxes on 1 or 2 properties per year in going forward for 10 years because the bulk or the majority of those taxing districts have already weighed in.
Yeah. So I guess the easy way to summarize it is ultimately the board, at this point, the board's support or not support doesn't impact the outcome.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Just a couple clarifying questions.
Yeah.
So now that you're creating these districts, they would exist in perpetuity until the city of Springfield decides to revoke the districts?
So I'm not coming up with the date right off the top of my head, but in the state statutes, this program at the state level sunsets. I think it's 2032. So there are other property tax exemptions for housing that had a sunset date that the state legislature has then extended, but there is a sunset date in state law for it right now.
But then anyone that enters into this 10-year contract, they would get that beyond 2032 until that 10 years is up.
Right, if they were granted it before that date and didn't.
And then can you explain the fee in lieu thing again?
Yeah. So this is kind of based on how the City of Eugene's MUPTE program works. So they have a fee in lieu for affordable housing that says, you would have paid this amount in taxes. We're going to have you pay us 10% of that. And then in turn, at the City of Springfield, we will use those funds to complete ADA accessibility projects and public facilities. So like I keep saying curb ramps because we have hundreds of curb ramps that are not ADA compliant that we're kind of chipping away at right now. So we have projects ready to go that would help bring accessibility to the community. So that was kind of the goal with that one.
And the other cities that have the MUPTE and some, they all have gotten support from over 51% of their taxing districts as well, correct?
I think that the city of Salem has developers do it on a project by project basis. So I don't think that they have, I think it's like when a project comes, then the city says, now if you want it to apply further than just the cities, you need to go out and get at least 51%. But what we heard when we talked to other cities about it is like, that's not really an approach that is effective for the city or the developer.
But Eugene and Cottage Grove and Florence.
Yes.
Yes, they've gotten about 51% as well.
Yes.
Well, thank you for your time. Steve has another question.
Just one, it's really for Brett, maybe as our historian. Did when the City of Eugene, Cottage Grove, Florence did their MUPTEs, did they come to LCC in the same kind of way, looking for our support and approval?
So in some instances they have. You'll recall, well, you may not recall, but this board has supported the City of Eugene's urban renewal efforts in downtown, which is similar to a MUPTE in how it kind of holds the extra tax value each year for a period of time. I believe Creswell had a housing tax credit a few years ago. Cottage Grove had a program. You may have been on the board when that came.
One in Florence a little over a year ago.
Yeah, so I mean, these things have come to the board on a fairly regular basis over the years, and the board has usually supported them.
Sweet. So we look forward to getting that language from you, and bring that back to the board at a future date for discussion.
All right. Thank you. We appreciate your time.
Okay, next up on the agenda is the annual governance report. President Belcher, you want to lead us off?
Absolutely. So I'm pleased to introduce Anna Scott, who's been chair of the college governance group, College Council. And the annual governance report is required as part of one of the board's policies. And so I'm going to turn over the time now to you, Anna, for your report.
Thank you, Dr. Bolger. And thank you, Board of Education, and hi there, officers and audience members. I am the outgoing chair of the 2023-24 College Council, and today we're presenting to you the annual report that we're required to do. A little bit of a different take on this, as I am interested in letting you know how much progress we've made this year in doing the job that we're supposed to do and what that might entail. Next slide, please. So just a little bit of background. When we onboard folks into our governance area, we let them know about two areas: college policies and procedures. So the following is just sort of to illustrate the difference between college operational policies from board policy. The board sets the standards for the school system through board policy. And I got that quote from Oregon School Boards Association Code of Conduct for School Board Members. The reason why I put this slide up here is that we've had some interesting time with our governance system sort of intertwining. And I wanted to give you some background on how we operate within college policies, formal statements, principles or rules, and procedures. Procedures we're not involved with that tell members how to carry out or implement a policy. Next slide, please. So how do we work? Well, we work together on college operational policy and college-wide strategic planning. So you can see that the College Council is part of a rich ecosystem. Its base is our community college stakeholders, students, community members, staff, Board of Education. And our work is not the how to do it, aka the procedure on the previous slide, nor does it address the implementation. We leave that for our stakeholders to dive into. We're at the policy level, and here are the councils that we represent, that are represented on College Council. Next slide, please. So some of the accomplishments include passing 5 new or revised college policies, and that we've given input on 2 board policies. Other highlights that I wanted to talk about include the use of board docs. So transparency was my goal for this year and my guiding star. So if you are familiar with board docs, you can now go all the way to the right-hand side. It looks like a little pavilion or a structure. Pull that down, and now you can see that College Council is there for you to look at our previous year, 2023-24, plus some previous notes, agendas, and motions that we've made. And I think I'm starting that with the 2022-23 meeting minutes and agendas. A lot of these things haven't been as transparent. So I know we have one of our student leadership folks in the room with you now, Sophie. And Sophie was able to use our board docs to get up and running when she came to our College Council meeting. So I feel that's a big win if students can step into and devote their precious time to our college governance system in a fairly transparent way. So also, besides these policies and import on board policies, I wanted to highlight that we are in partnership with our academic technology and developed a draft Zoom and hybrid meeting council training via Moodle. That was one of the things that was required of us when we had our governance redesign. So we were able to check that box this year. We also have an onboarding packet via Google Docs and Canva for chairs and members. You'll also find this on our board docs too, thanks to collaboration with Brett Roulette. So if you're looking for some information on how we're operating and how we're onboarding, it's there for you to see. It's there for our public to see as well. This year, I'd like to say we're adopting a 2-year pilot of a college council co-chair model, which is going to be based on the success of our faculty, student success, and diversity council's co-chair structure. To that, I say, whew, thank goodness, because as a single operator of the college chair role, it's a lot of work. Next slide, please. So work that needs to be continued is identified in these two slides here. And you'll notice that the upcoming college input on board policies is pretty thick. We've got at least 4 items here, but within those items, you'll notice that there are several substantive areas that we've been asked to provide input on. So keep your eyes out for our next team leaders as they lead our group through these very important areas, this cross collaboration between council and board policies. It's not that all of our group is singing in the same choir on the interdependency between council and board policies. It's just that you've asked and we are responding to your request for input on these board policies. Otherwise, we've got some technology policies, a college survey, and we get into the details a little bit on some of the operational areas, but we're really hopeful that we help our organization understand that what might come in front of us to be considered, we might have to have them look at it more in a broader sense of the words. So way to go, 2023-24 College Council members. We've got a College Council notice and comment period process now, which is web-based. And we've also updated our sustainability policy to reflect procedures related to retiring redundant policies. Next slide, please. So, questions?
Two questions. First off, I believe you had an open invitation for board members to come and say hi to any of the, I hope that invitation, this remains open, of course. I think that's really important with shared governance. I thank you for mentioning our student president and her activities with these committees. I assume there's a student role in every one of these committees. And has there been a consistent attendance with students? I know with like class schedules, work-life balance, and so forth, that could be difficult. Has conversations happened to how we can make sure that student voices are included?
Yes, that is something that we kind of did a wrap up on in the last part of our College Council feedback. And one of the things that I pushed on was having the board docs be at a seminal point of reference for everyone, since it is an extremely timely, time-consuming meeting for students. We're talking about a couple of hours of working through our process. Plus, we talked about perhaps having students sort of step up into some of our subcommittees. And I believe Sophie was there for that discussion and was able to lead us a little bit with like, yeah, there's a lot of time and time involved. How can we break this up? How can we make this more transparent? We have reconnected with sending announcements out through, I think, Titan Times, and part of the transparency and the huge home run that we've hit with onboarding talks about how chairs, not just the College Council chair, but how all of our chairs and all of our members in the council system can use these particular pieces of communication to get information out to the students in specific. Before I leave this, I want to just say the next folks are going to be College Council co-chairs, Amanda Blunt, who's a classified employee with HR, and Maggie Wright, who's a faculty member in our library area. I'm pretty excited about that team, and you'll have to ask them about what their plans are. I think Amanda might be in the audience, but she's not with her co-chair, so don't put her on the spot quite yet.
Can you talk a little bit about board policies and what differentiates those from college policies and the process that you're using to work through those?
Sure. If Brett wants to go back to slide number 2. And that's where we have that side by side of college policies and procedures. College policies or operational policies. So those are formal statements of principles or rules that Lane Community College members are expected to follow. So an example of that would be our food and drink policy. Procedures that tell members how to carry out or implement a policy would be making sure that facilities is updating their signage to tell folks that their food and drink is not allowed in these particular areas, or to have some guidelines around what folks that are leading meetings or classes are allowed to do with food and drink. So the quote I put up, which I unfortunately didn't put on this slide, is that board policy is setting the standards for the school system. So you got college policies, those are principles and rules, they're operational in nature. The board policy is setting the standards for the entire school system. So for example, some of the board policies that we're asking to get information from us, I'm looking at a different slide now. I'm popping Brett to slide number 5. Is, securing copyright, intellectual property, and you'll see next to it the councils that we've identified who are going to give us input to send back to you. The time, speech, and manner. We have that in a college council policy subcommittee. And we have a pending council assignment for the honorary degrees, academic renewal and field trip excursions. What we've given you input on, if you go back up to slide 4, and I do apologize for bouncing around here, is we've given you input on from our Student Success Council about the board policy 5020 draft that was passed, and the Student Success Council gave you by 5015. And so those dealt directly with student success. So OCCA, and I know you guys have been going through your board policies and where we have operational policies. I think some of the cross areas are difficult for our folks to know because there isn't exactly a one-to-one relationship. As our system is bifurcated, we have a lot of operational policies that, like we're pointing out here, have some relation to board policies, but only in very small touched areas. So I would have to say that there is some confusion, especially with people that are newly onboarding, and we're doing the best we can to give the information back to the Board of Education. It's just that some of this really gets messy, and that's why I'm really looking forward to more transparency with board docs between our two groups in the future.
It's my understanding we're working through all the board policies slowly but surely. Is that correct?
Yes, there was an OCCA library that was subscription that was adopted by the board before I arrived. The board is working through those policies, and some of them are in the college council process in addition to coming before the board. So that is still underway.
Thank you.
Comment that'll take 30 seconds. Not to put any of our future co-chairs on the spot, but I feel this board has done a lot to be more inclusive to students, both in having a student representative sit on the board, giving students first opportunity to speak at public comment. And I just want to throughout our shared governance process, to look for opportunities to be as inclusive as possible of our student population. I think that's a very vital stakeholder to be a part of these conversations. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much for your time.
You're
And
welcome.
We'll move on to the next topic. Up next is the Bond Oversight Committee Annual Report.
Yes, as it's stated, we annually give a report on the Bond Oversight Committee's work. And Kara, can you do that for us?
Happy to present the Bond Oversight Committee's annual report. Highlights, which you all have already discussed today, are the Health Professions Building and the iTech Building. But what I do also want to point out and commend Phil for his comments on the dedication and quality of staff and how the college is fulfilling the promises to taxpayers and voters. And a huge part of that is the team that works on that with Jennifer and Tom and it's a very massive amount of people that work on all those projects. So they're doing really good work and I appreciate all of them. And if you have any more specific details that you want to go through, of course, we have subject matter experts here.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Just really quickly, just to speak to the staff, your work is incredible. Thank you for all the questions, even my stupid questions that you have answered. Thank you so much.
Okay. Seeing none, I think I'll just say thank you to the Bond Oversight Committee for your volunteer work. We appreciate your time and your dedication to helping us manage the college in a responsible manner. So thank you very much.
I have one final question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Lisa, go ahead.
Do we have any vacancies on the Bond Oversight Committee?
I don't believe so. They were all full last time I was in there. I'll verify it and get that back to you though.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay, well, with that, the report, everything looked good and seemed to be approving of everything we've spent so far. I'm looking forward to final decisions for remaining allocations. So just thanks again to staff and to the Bond Oversight Committee for the work that you've been doing. Moving on, the next report is the LCC Foundation campaign update.
Yes, so Wendy is going to come up and talk about the capital campaign. I just want to remind the board, and we have some new members on the board who were not here in December of 2022. And the board was interested in talking about a capital campaign and had me work with the LCC Foundation on that and approved some vision and goals around the capital campaign. Since then, and Wendy's going to give an update on this, since then there was a feasibility study. You may remember the consultant who came to the board meeting to talk about the feasibility study and the outcomes or the results of that. And now what we want to do is give you an update, and you've got the brochure in front of you. You probably each have a brochure. And so Wendy is going to give you an update about where we are so far. Wendy?
Hey, everybody. And just a reminder, my monthly reports that you get also give you a sense of the gifts coming in. Those are all gifts that are related to this. So I encourage you to read that every month. It's really fun and exciting stuff that's happening. Okay, Brett's gonna man the slides for me. So how did we get here? I'm not gonna go through all of this, but this has been a process, and I love that. I love that this was a process because it means that we're doing it the right way and mirrors the way we've done campaigns in the past. We went through quite a lengthy process of meeting with internal stakeholders all over campus, doing a feasibility study that involved external stakeholders, lots of back and forth about priorities and how we would capture this in a case statement. You can read some of that in front of you. That's the result of, oh my gosh, so many voices. Hard to encapsulate everyone's vision in one document, but we sure did try. And again, this is something that is continuously evolving as we go through our quiet phase. One of the reasons why we have a quiet phase is we test these things with our leadership donors, we refine them, and then when we're ready to go public with our big press releases and all of that, we'll have refined that case statement. We'll know where we stand. We will know at that point that we will succeed. It won't be a surprise to anybody. So just a little history on that. That case statement was presented to our foundation board just this past month. And so it's hot off the press there. You can see the campaign title and tagline, a lasting local lane. This was something that was debated and wordsmithed and all of that with our foundation folks and our external stakeholders as well. Learn local, work local, something that really resonated with our board and our donors. It was just the you're never going to capture everyone's vision, but this was the feeling that most responded to. So I think that that's really wonderful, and excited to have that in our materials. So the campaign, two main buckets. I want to keep this really simple because I want you to have it in your mind, right? When you're talking to folks out in the community. I'll bring this up later, but quiet phase doesn't mean silent. It just means that we're still refining things. But we want you to infuse this when you talk to people, when they ask you, what is LCC fundraising for? What are the main goals right now for Lane Community College? It's this workforce and talent development hub, right? Workforce and talent development hub. And how are we going to do that? We're going to do that two ways. The first way we're going to do it is we're going to fortify tomorrow's workforce. And this is about supporting our students directly through scholarships. We want to grant more scholarships. We want to increase our annual scholarship dollars. When we started this effort, we were giving just over $1 million. We want to get that up to over 1.4 million by the time we're done. And I think we're actually going to do way more than that, based on what we've seen so far. We want to address basic needs. We've been working the past 2 years with the CARE program, a really awesome program on campus, supports students very holistically, works with them to identify how financial crises can be overcome. We've been able to get a good amount of funding for them, but we want to make that a sustained funding stream for them to address emergency needs for students on campus outside of our traditional scholarship structure, right? So we're looking to establish a real fund for them. We want to get students funding for hands-on learning. Community college, very different than a four-year university, right? The four-year university kids, they're getting internships and they're getting lab experiences with all the UO professors and all of that. Whenever I talk to our professors here, they want that for their students as well. When students do that, they often can't also have a job at the same time, or they can't work as much. So we want to make sure they're supported so they can have those extra experiences as well. And especially when they transfer to a four-year school, they're coming in with the same experiences, the same advantages that their four-year counterparts had from day one. So we want to get funding for students to attend conferences, for them to have stipends to do internships and research experiences and things like that. So that's another aspect to fortifying the workforce. And then also student outreach and onboarding. We have onboarding experiences. We want more sustainable funding for them. We already provide a lot of really great funding for things happening on campus with various cohorts and various groups, but we want to make sure that they have the tools they need to succeed. Financial workshops, veterans orientation, things that we funded in the past, anything like that, that can give students that onboarding experience that gets them to register for classes, stay here, and understand the resources available to them. Our campus does such great stuff already. We want to get the word out about all of those things and make sure students can access them really easily. So we want to support outreach and communications for events and other aspects as much as possible, because we want them to know about it, not just have it. We want to establish cross-campus partnerships and innovations annually. There's so many examples of this. One that I might point to recently, our Triple S program, which works with some of our most vulnerable populations, received a grant from one of our donors to collaborate with our Career Pathways and Culinary program to get food handlers cards for those students to give them more opportunities to work in the food pantry. It was really a cross-campus collaboration that was spearheaded by Justin Chin in Workforce Development. And it was a really great example of breaking down some of those silos to get academic and workforce development working together. So that's really awesome. We want to make sure we have a welcoming front door, literally physically, in building one. not just metaphorically. So we want to think about how that space is presented, raise capital for that space so that they can function to the best of their ability, make sure they have all the tools that they need for advising and financial aid. Oh my goodness. I mean, that's the student's first stop, right? Whether they do it in person or online, that's going to make the difference for if they sign up for something or if they walk away. So we want to make sure that that experience is streamlined and wonderful. We've been working really, really closely with Colin Joyce on how to make that happen with student success coaches. It's something that we've been talking with donors about, and they've been responding really, really well. So fortifying tomorrow's workforce, first bucket. The next bucket, filling the toolbox. So this is really the hands-on stuff, right? This is stuff you may be more familiar with. It's easier to think about. It's stuff. It's the iTech equipment. It's everything that's going in that building. It's making sure our trades programs really have top of the line equipment and that we can sustain that over time, right? Because we're going to need to replace that equipment eventually. We're going to need to keep doing this. We can't just, it's not just a one and done. So we want to make sure that they have a pool of money to get that equipment in there and maintain it. We want equipment for our other programs. We just recently received a wonderful grant from Lynn Community Health Council for health professions equipment, new SIMs, things like that going into our health and wellness building, as well as our new health professions building, things like that. Really wonderful equipment across the board for all of our majors. And then next slide. So filling the toolbox, IT infrastructure and academic technology. So this is really huge. This is all the behind the scenes stuff. When we went out to departments and talked to them, one thing that came across in almost every conversation we had was we need enhanced IT. We need better technology, better computers, better wireless, better storage, everything to make sure that we're actually functioning. Our IT runs everything from a student enrolling and registering at this college for a class to signing up for an appointment with advising, to the phone systems, to our smart classrooms, to that equipment I talked about. It's everywhere. If we don't have that, a lot of what we do could not be done well. So we want to make sure that's at the top of its game. And we heard that across the board from every department. So we're really stressing IT infrastructure and also the academic technology piece. A couple of things that aren't on this slide, but I've just gotten really excited about speaking with the experts in those areas is our upcoming AI lab and cybersecurity lab. Oh my goodness, this is like exciting stuff. So I'm sure that you will have a presentation on those things from those program folks in the future, but definitely ask about it because it's really, really cool. And then we have a category just for donor legacy, any department. We have donors that have passion projects. We have a donor that funded $200,000 for animation labs here on campus. We have donors who are committed to the fine arts, the donors who are committed to our transfer programs, our human services department, everything like that, and as well as our multicultural programs. Anything you can think of, we have a donor who has a passion for that. So we don't want to leave them out of this experience of being in our campaign. If the prior things I talked about don't resonate with them, we will capture them with their support of our departments individually. That also includes our employee campaigns that we run every year where our departments support themselves when their employees give to either their department or to student support as well. So we want to honor all of those people in this campaign. So what's next? Okay, we're in the quiet phase. We're going to keep being in the quiet phase until we have at least 50%. That's when we go public and we go big, and you will hear a lot more from me when that happens. We continue to refine our case statement and our priorities. We're forming a campaign leadership group that will be sort of the steering committee on my side of the house and help my staff in their work. So right now, based on the conversations we've had with those leadership donors, we are very, very optimistic that we will be ready for that in late 2025. Remember, this is a 7-year effort, 2023 to 2030. So we're in the long game here. So we are very optimistic that late 2025, we will be ready to go public. I will update you as we get closer to that time period to see how realistic that remains. But the next slide. So how can you help? So even though we're in the quiet phase, like I said, please read the talking points, get a sense for this. Please infuse these priorities with people you talk to. Get them excited about this. So then when we come to them, whether it's now or a year from now, they will be ready because they will know that these are the top priorities for fundraising for this college. Please continue to build your relationship. You guys are all good at that, right? You're elected, you're in politics, you're good at the relationships. That's awesome. Let's use that. Please connect people to Dr. Bulger, to me, to Tiana and Katie in our office. Really great example. So recently, Lisa connected us to an organization called CALC in Springfield, had a wonderful meeting with them. Really great opportunities there for us to collaborate on grants and things like that. So that's a really great example of you don't even have to sit there and make any sort of ask for us. I'm not asking you to do that. Just want you to open the door and make sure that they'll take my phone call, right? So just tell them, hey, Wendy's cool. Take her phone call, meet with her, learn about Lane. So if you have any questions about that, ask Lisa. She's done it for us a lot. So some of the rest of you has done it as well. So thank you so much. But continue to connect Dr. Bulger and all of us with those people because that's what's going to make it happen. That's the network we need. So with that, does anybody have any questions?
See Austin and then Denise.
Denise, you can go first.
Go ahead.
One of the things I think we've asked about before in the past is naming of buildings and classrooms and stuff. Does that fit in that last category of potential?
Yeah, so we have tentative naming opportunities throughout the 2 new buildings. We have to bring them to you for final approval when they're ready. We are in the process of talking to folks about if those opportunities are meaningful to them. So we'll probably at some point we'll bring you a list with affiliated names and you will discuss.
Any policy gaps that we need to be aware of in regards to naming of buildings and stuff?
I don't believe so. We've done it many times in the past. So, yeah, it just needs to go through this board officially. But yeah.
Okay, Denise.
I appreciate your enthusiasm. It's terrific. I can see where people would jump on board just by your enthusiastic presentation. I am concerned as a representative for Western Lane and in particular Florence, that there's a very big disconnect. We don't even have advising in Florence. We used to, but we don't. And there's just, it's desert. So there's a huge opportunity and a huge, I think, level of interest in the trades. There are so many family businesses and small businesses and trade businesses in Florence and around that. I think that opportunity just really needs some more connectivity.
Absolutely. So we would love more connections. Tiana's our point person for Florence. We've worked out there a lot. We have pretty close connections to a lot of the major players, but we would love more. So that's where you can totally help us. We would love to go on joint meetings. If there are folks that you know that you want to connect us to, then let's do it.
I think that's a certain level of connectivity and fundraising and donorship. And I understand that from a campaign level. I think on the boots on the ground level, the message of just having more, I think, boots on the ground listening and boots on the ground understanding of what people in the community, what students, what they're saying, what the family members are saying, what they're looking for, how they perceive that they're going to access it. Because at this point in time, it really comes across as, wow, it's really great that Eugene campus has all these wonderful things. And then and how do I get to Eugene in any way that makes sense, right? Because we know the public transportation piece is a bit convoluted. Not everybody has those opportunities. Something as simple as a dedicated transportation system.
Wouldn't that be
that says this is the Florence Center pickup point, and this will give you opportunities to plug into these various programs. What's your interest? How are we going to do that? Seems to be, it's a win-win, right? It's a win-win for the trades. It's a win-win for students. It's just a win-win. But there are some logistical things that really need to happen. And I really hope that all the wonderfuls that are happening on this campus, and rightfully so, also have connectivity, right?
Well, so I think, so I will let the college folks speak to those specific ideas, which are awesome. But what I think we can do from the foundation side is hear that. And get that message to our folks here on campus who do those things. We're all about connections. So if we have voices that we can connect our college leaders to, that's a really great other side to this, other than the dollar fundraising, is getting that outreach and that community engagement. So I think that's something that we can certainly assist with. And I know the folks here are great about going out, listening and brainstorming on strategies. So great. Yeah.
Kevin, and then I'll have a question, then we'll probably try and wrap up this topic.
Oh, yeah, just real quickly. Thanks, Wendy. The brochure looks great. The title, A Lasting Local Lane, Learn Local, Work Local, is wonderful. And I can only imagine the countless hours you spent wordsmithing those.
Finding words that start with L.
Legendary.
Lovely.
One question I had was the campaign appears to have these two overarching goals of 15 million for each of the two overarching goals. And then sub to that, it has increased annual scholarship dollars by 400,000, I believe, per year. And then establish reliable funding of 500,000 plus for the CARE program, also presumably per year. Can you talk about how those per year numbers relate to the overarching numbers? Is it expected that the overarching number will be able to pay for those annual numbers, or are those separate goals?
No, that's all within the overarching number.
Okay, so if we got that $15 million goal, it would presumably
Which is
fund the.
tentative, a public meeting, quiet phase tentative, but yes.
But ideally, if we raise that amount, that would cover the 400,000 and
Yes.
500,000,
Yes.
900,000 total in annual costs. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, anyone else before we change that? Okay, seeing no one, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. You can always email me if you have other questions.
Okay, next up is academic affairs.
Yes, we have a couple of updates, an academic affairs update and a student affairs update. And so we have Grant Matthews standing in for Shelley Tinkham. And so Grant.
Yes, good evening, Dr. Bolger, Chair Mulholland and board. I'm here representing Shelley, who's on a much needed vacation. And I wish I could say wish I could be there with you, but honestly, I've heard it's very hot in the valley and it's much cooler here at the coast. So I guess I'm glad to be on Zoom. As we wrapped up the year, I just want to just call out and acknowledge all of the many pinning ceremonies and graduation celebrations that we had throughout the end of the academic year. It was really uplifting in academic affairs to see our students celebrated and to see them celebrate their success with family members, friends, faculty, and staff that have helped them throughout their studies. It was a busy couple of weeks, but definitely full of celebration. Here's just a sampler of some of the celebrations in case you can or want to join us again next year. There was a dental assisting, dental hygiene, physical therapy assistant, nursing, and LPN pinning ceremonies, paramedicine graduation, Path Lane student celebration, a graphic design and multimedia graduation with a showcase of their artwork and projects, event, and many, many others. As we wrap up the year, I just wanted to highlight one particularly important project as a highlight of the year. Our health professions programs partnered with Florence again this year and ran from April to June a CNA program with 7 local high school students from the Florence community. The program was funded by the Peace Health Foundation and Peace Harbor's Ruth Frank and Jason Hawkins helped with that collaboration. As the summer continues, Academic Affairs is starting to look forward to the new academic year and preparing for upcoming in-service and professional development events. We will be spending time planning and preparing for these events, including a faculty in-service training with Flower Darby, Associate Director of Teaching and for Learning at the University of Missouri, and that'll be on September 19th. Many of you may remember that Lane Community College is the recipient of several community funding projects championed by our federal legislative delegation. The Simulation Lab in Health Professions, that funding is one of those projects. And Health Professions Faculty Coordinator Casey Ellis received national certification as a certified healthcare simulation educator, bringing us closer to an important to our goal of having a Center for Simulation Education to serve the region here. If you do find yourself wandering campus over the next couple of weeks, please stop by Building 10 to see the prototype for a prototype bench that is on display. Through the Lane Forward Fund, art faculty member Lee Immonen and his 3D design students built the prototype using Douglas fir slabs donated by the Raposo family. These bench designs and the donated wood will become part of the Designing Art for Public Spaces courses that will be taught by Lee Immonen and Erica Beyer throughout the coming school year. So please stop by and take a look at that first prototype. I'm personally excited to use the next couple months to gear up for another excellent academic year full of potential and student success, and look forward to helping our students as they continue with their goals. And that concludes the Academic Affairs report for tonight.
Steve and then Austin. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Austin.
Yeah, I have a question about decibel levels. I'm just kidding. No, I really appreciate you. Really appreciate you sending a message about the decibel on the regards to the pickleball stuff. In regards to the lab that you were mentioning, that was by our congressional delegation. Was that for the Health and Science Building, or was that for the Cottage Grove?
So that is in our Health Professions Building, the first one, the Health Building, Building 30. And it was dual funding. It's helping cover some of the costs for new simulators and mannequins, and then also covering funding for several years to develop curriculum and support for running full simulations and cross-disciplinary simulations within health professions. So new curriculum and partnerships are being developed through that federal funding and other funds.
Excellent. Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, thanks for the update. And next up is going to be Student Affairs.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Board of Education President Bolger. The report, the highlights basically from our last couple of weeks, a wrap up at the end of term. We haven't maybe as much going on now, but we had so many different events during spring that it was, I think people are pretty glad it's summer right now. I wanted to mention, first of all, director. We got a new director for academic advising, Mary Smith. She spent 5 years in the 4J School District and also University of Texas Medical School and a few other places. She's a great addition. We're excited to have it here. Athletics. 29 Lane students were awarded NWAC All Academic Team last week. Qualifications for recognition are to be sophomore in eligibility, have a minimum of 60 credits and a 3.25 cumulative GPA. We had 4 different advising and reg fests, and sometimes on Saturday, our staff, our classified staff had come to work on Saturdays. We had over 300 students register for summer just in those. And so I appreciate all the staff who came and spent their days doing that. The Black Student Union had an end of year celebration and introduced their new president, Aja Brown. And MEDCHA and Jim Garcia put on a Celebramos, which is a celebration of Latinx students and their families for achieving success at Lane Community College. just a few other things. June the 6th was a really big day in the Multicultural Center. In addition to holding an end of year celebration, students and Lane staff honored soon to just retired, actually. This was posted a week or so ago. MCC Latinx faculty coordinator Jim Garcia, who's been with us for decades and is also so well known in the local community. He's going to work with us part-time for a little while as we get a full-time person on board in that role and help us move towards, that HSI designation in the future. And I wanted to mention recruitment and admissions. Rosa Maria visited a lot of high schools in May and June: South Eugene, Willamette, North Eugene, Elmira, Thurston, Junction City, Churchill, Springfield. And we also had a number of high schools come out. Creswell, Willamette, Cottage Grove, Oak Ridge, and North Eugene. They actually came to campus and our staff helped advise them, register them for classes and everything. And then I wanted to mention financial aid. We've had a tough year. Everybody has in kind of the slow rollout of the new financial aid awards system, FAFSA system. And so we did get our funds dispersed for summer. We managed to, our financial aid team have been working a lot of hours and fielding a lot of calls of stressed out students. And I totally get where they were coming from, not knowing what their awards were going to be and so on. But that we're up to date on that. And now they've turned their attention to fall. And I wanted to mention again, thanks for everyone, all the volunteers who spent about a year putting commencement together. Even over here, we got. I would just want to say thank you because your team made it spot on. Brent Ellison. I want to mention Becca and Megan, who did so much work on this. And again, we had so many faculty and staff involved in it to make it go on. And as we're going into summer term here, I just want to recognize all of our classified staff, deans and directors, and others who are going to be working on kind of keeping the campus moving, helping our summer term students and the faculty who are working through summer, but also that push for the fall enrollment. It actually gets busy again for a lot of our staff members, and they're going to be especially busy in August and early September. So that was all for me.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up, we have the LCCEA and LCCEF reports. If Adrian Mitchell want to come down and present, please.
Good evening, Board of Education members and President Bulger. I'm going to provide a few updates about recent events related to faculty, as well as some of our all faculty survey results and legislative advocacy. So the first update is regarding some changes that are taking place in the ABSE and ESL departments. The ABSE is the Adult Basic Skills Education Department. We learned in May that the administration is implementing substantial changes to the minimum qualifications required for faculty working in those departments, in particular ABSE. Approximately 1/3 of the faculty in ABSE will become ineligible to teach some of their classes for which they were hired, and an additional 1/3 will become ineligible within 1 year to teach any classes for which they were hired. This includes both part-time and full-time faculty, newly hired and long-time faculty. Unless they're granted alternative certification, the changes would require the affected faculty to obtain a second master's degree or obtain a K-12 teaching license with specific endorsements, either of which would take 1 to 2 years of additional full-time graduate coursework and tens of thousands of dollars in order to continue teaching the same classes that they already teach successfully. This has been a challenge for labor relations. LCCEA has not been able to receive clear responses to our requests for information from the administration. Our requests to meet and discuss this issue have been declined, and LCCEA has been informed that responses will only be provided by LCC's outside attorneys. In addition, this change to minimum qualifications presents a challenge because it is not consistent with our joint LCCEA HR recruitment and retention plan for BIPOC faculty, which is critical for diversity on campus. On behalf of the faculty, we look forward to a future time where administrators choose a more collaborative and productive approach, and one that does not unnecessarily exhaust precious LCC funding on outside counsel. On another unrelated note, I'm deeply saddened to report that another faculty member of color has resigned last week from LCC due to what they have described as toxic working conditions. This makes 3 faculty of color choosing to leave due to conditions at LCC so far in 2024, not including faculty who are leaving in December. As you might recall, 80% of faculty, according to our last all-faculty survey, indicate that addressing bias and discrimination on campus is a high or highest priority, with a full 2/3 of respondents indicating it is a highest priority. We look forward to learning more about what actions you will take as a board to provide the leadership necessary to ensure that LCC becomes a more inclusive, welcoming place for faculty from historically oppressed groups and a place where faculty advocates can feel safe to voice concerns about conditions on campus without fear of retribution. I'm going to share some additional survey results from our all faculty survey that are not related to those topics. This is a survey of 248 participants, and that represents more than 60% of the faculty. And the results indicate some significant faculty needs and also some really wonderful and substantial support for students and meeting student needs. So with regard to faculty needs, 40% of part-time faculty who are not retired and 11% of full-time faculty have relied on government assistance while working at LCC. 37% have 1 or more other jobs, and 10% have 2 or more other jobs. 15% of part-time faculty and 7% of contracted faculty experienced food insecurity in the 2023 year, and 15% experienced housing insecurity in the 2023 year. Among all the faculty respondents, 45% of full-time faculty and 55% of part-time faculty have considered seeking a job elsewhere due to working conditions at LCC. In terms of support for students, this is the really wonderful part of the report, I think, in terms of the strong and consistent support that faculty have for meeting student needs. And a full 99% of faculty respondents indicate support for addressing student needs with appropriate staffing for student services, including counseling, mental health, advising, tutoring, support for student basic needs, food and housing, as well as reducing student costs, including funding for faculty to develop and adopt open educational resources, reducing textbook markup, et cetera. And last but not least, we had the opportunity, 3 faculty members, including Solomon Singer from the drone program, Rosa Lopez from Career Pathways, and I joined President Bulger, students and others to meet with State Representative Zach Hudson last week, who is the incoming chair of the House Higher Education Committee, to advocate for funding for community colleges and policies that support our students in the next legislative session. We were delighted to participate in this collaborative event and look forward to more. And I'll be forwarding a copy of this report with a photo that was taken by Brett Rowlett. Thank you.
Thank you. No questions or comments after those. So next will be the LCCEF report from Fiora Starchild-Wolf.
Good evening, President Bulger and our esteemed Board of Education. I'm Fiora Starchild-Wolf, LCCEF EC member. Frankie could not be present this evening and asked me to give the LCCEF report. In the last 2 board reports, we have highlighted critical issues facing our classified professionals at Lane. We drew attention to the severe workload challenges endured due to unfilled positions. One employee lost 80 hours of vacation in a year because they were the only staff member in their department and didn't feel they could take vacation. Another reported becoming physically ill each morning due to the overwhelming workload and poor working conditions. Leaving positions unfilled to balance the budget is not a sustainable solution. This approach severely impacts health and well-being of our classified staff, leading to stress-induced ailments. Furthermore, when employees are overstretched, it compromises the quality of education we provide to our students. Mistakes occur, critical steps are missed, and the seamless educational experience we strive for is undermined. If we don't fill these classified positions, the consequences for our students are significant. Our classified professionals are integral to daily operations and support systems. We've heard so many about them tonight that allow our students to succeed. When these positions remain vacant, it leaves holes in our operations, and the quality of our support that the students receive diminishes. When positions go unfilled, remaining employees find themselves taking on additional tasks to fill the holes that don't flow as well with their current work. This results in increased errors, delays, and a decrease in the overall quality of education. Our students' success is directly tied to the well-being and capacity of our staff to perform their duties effectively. Lane Community College could be the best community college in Oregon, and I can remember when we were one of the top-ranked community colleges in the nation. In many ways, I believe we still are, but there have been so many cuts that this is difficult to sustain. I've been hearing just in this meeting tonight from one of you how we are not supporting opportunities in staffing at Florence campus, for example. There were once many thriving programs in Florence and Cottage Grove, as well as area high schools. This is still needed in our community. There are so many other ways that Lane can improve access and increase offerings. However, this is unattainable without addressing the critical issue of understaffing. Our students deserve the best, which can only be achieved by adequate staffing and support for our classified professionals. LCCEF urges the board members, as you create the budget for the upcoming year, to please prioritize filling classified professional positions. By allocating funds to fill these vacancies, you ensure that employees are not overburdened, health is not compromised, and the students receive the quality education they deserve. We ask you to truly treat us as the crucial part of student success that we are and ensure that Lane Community College provides the best possible environment for both staff and students. As you have seen, enrollment has been consistently increasing each term since the pandemic. Lane's classified professionals can take a huge amount of credit for being the student-facing support that gets new students in the door and helps retain them, moving them through their education all the way to earning a credential at Lane Community College, like we saw this past month. We are so proud of our students and work that helps them achieve their goals. Students are so appreciative when our members are able to go the extra mile to really give them what they need. Just this week, I did have the time to really support a former student, and he responded by sending me not only a thank you email, but an organic fruit box, which of course our only mailroom professional hand delivered to me today. We don't expect that. It was a complete surprise, but we do expect the staffing levels that we can go that extra mile for our students that makes them feel truly that their legitimate needs will be met. I see my colleagues doing all they can for students, truly trying to give a feeling that students matter and aren't just a number here at Lane. But doing that takes a little more time and attention, and rushed, understaffed people don't feel as able to give that. Lane's classified professionals not only need adequate staffing for departments to function smoothly, but also adequate staffing for taking time away from work. I just returned from a vacation, refreshed, and that has made such a difference in how it feels to be here, and therefore how I approach my students. But many classified professionals have told us they don't feel they can take well-earned time away for that renewal, either because they don't want to leave their colleagues without adequate support, or because they dread the level of work they will return to, because there isn't adequate staffing to keep up with the workload when one person is taking that needed break. As we see increased student enrollment, we must also see a corresponding increase in hiring to maintain the quality of education and support services. We cannot continue the old adage of do more with less. Please prioritize funding for more classified professional staffing. Let's work together to keep Lane Community College a beacon of excellence in Oregon. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrienne. Next on the agenda.
Yeah, that's Fiora Star Child Wolf.
Oh my gosh. Sorry.
Okay, Zach.
I'm trying. First me. Thank you for your, have a great night. Okay, next on the agenda is information reports. Are there any comments or questions about any of the information reports from the board? Okay, not seeing any board members' questions or comments generally. I saw Kevin, then Lisa, then Austin.
Okay, well, first off, thank you to Austin for chairing this board for the last year. I've enjoyed working with you and getting to know you. And thank you for your leadership. And thank you, Lisa, for vice chair. You've got a few things going on. So I've appreciated working with you, and congrats to Zach for now chairing us into the next year. And I look forward to working with you and the rest of the board members. And thanks to Dr. Abby Lee, who visited us tonight. So on day 2 or day 3 of your new job, we appreciate it. Moving forward, as the board considers our goals for next year, I would like to put student success up there at the top. And so I look forward to figuring out how best to do that, working with the president and her cabinet to help us develop measurable goals around student success.
Okay, Lisa.
Yes, I wanted to bring up the topic of interviews for replacing for appointing the empty seat in, I think it's zone 3. Do I have the number right? Yep. So I understand at this point, we only have one application. And that it is closing on July 8th. Human nature being what it is and what we've seen in other application processes, we often see, majority of applications come in closer to the application deadline. So hopefully we'll get a few more. That being said, I don't think we're going to have 10 to 15. Perhaps we'll have, 3 or 4. And I think that number of applications makes meeting on July 17th doable. And I'd like for us to think about if we should move forward with an appointment and interview process on that date, as we all saved the date at our last meeting when we discussed it. We would usually have a meeting that evening, but we do not because of the retreat on Saturday. So I'm curious to hear how people feel about solidifying that we saved it, and it seems like it might be doable.
Yeah, can you clarify the future meeting dates document? Did that include a meeting on the 17th?
It did not, but it did not. But in regards to our last meeting, we made a decision to go ahead and put that on our calendar in lieu of the applications for the new position or the zone 3.
Okay, so I agree. Probably would make sense to plan for us to meet that night and hold interviews that night. Do we need to amend the future meeting dates document in order to do that?
No, because it's, we don't need to amend the document when a special meeting is brought forward. So yeah, I do not think that.
So we're good to meet on the 17th. We don't have to take additional.
We just need to notice a special meeting.
Exactly.
Which
We'll take care of that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then
So is that a definite, just to calendar and know?
well, we had said at the last meeting, we would
Right,
save
I
that date.
have that in my calendar, but
So I'm suggesting that we, move
make it
ahead
a
with
definite.
planning.
Totally.
And then the other thing I wanted to say was that I did find some questions from when I was appointed in 2018. But they were only the second round of interview questions. There weren't that many. At the last meeting, I think Zach, myself, and I can't remember if there was one other person who said, who?
I think it was Kevin, but I don't mean to out you, but I thought that's what it was, but maybe I'm.
I don't think so.
Celia thinks it's me.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Celia. That we said we would help with the interview questions. And so I just wanted to bring our attention back to that.
So we need that by the 8th.
We need it by the 17th,
Okay.
July 17th.
And the idea is to get them out 24 hours ahead.
Yeah, I think we said something like 24 hours. Yeah.
Okay, so the three of us can loop back and
Yeah.
find a time to create those questions
Yeah.
and get
Sounds good. And can I request the opportunity for other board members to submit ideas for questions as well?
What's the best process to get those to?
Send them to Celia.
Okay, so if other board members, other than Lisa and Austin, I want those, have questions incorporated into that process, please send them to Celia. I expect we'll probably try and meet within the next week, maybe by the 10th. So if everyone can try and get us materials by the 10th, hopefully that should work for everyone. Okay. Kevin, you'd raised your hand. Do you have a point of clarification or?
Why do I have on my calendar LCC candidate interviews for Wednesday, July 10th? Now, I know I'm challenged when it comes to scheduling, but I don't know why.
On this topic,
Yeah, I don't know why either.
Steve and then Austin.
I don't have it.
At some point, it was suggested or was out there. Last meeting, I asked that we move it to a further date out because I'm not available next week. So
Thank you.
Yep.
Austin?
I really want to emphasize the point that Denise made in regards to the Florence campus and rural communities in general. I think that we should have a discussion or at least a presentation about the Florence campus. And I would say before the October work session that we hold in Florence, because I think it would be more fruitful for the board to have a conversation about how can we expand academic services to Florence in general before we meet in Florence, so that we can maybe even have a conversation of what are some next steps for Florence as well. When I heard the presentation about the foundation, what I heard was workforce. We're developing the workforce, and Florence has a workforce not only need but also opportunities as well. And I think that that really ties in as well to what the foundation is trying to do, and also the work that we as a board and we as an institution to be a workforce hub. So I personally, as a board member, would like to seek more opportunities to see how we can assist Florence with their workforce needs and training, education, and even like collaboration partnerships with our other coastal community colleges as well.
Okay. Thanks for bringing that up, Austin. I think that as the new chair and with Kevin as the new vice chair, I think if people have ideas for informational presentations, work session ideas, topics, that we can find a time and a process to get those ideas to Kevin and myself, and then try and get many of those things worked on throughout the course of the year. Based on the priorities of the board members. Perfect.
So just to clarify and ask the chair that when we're collecting suggestions for a particular topic, right, and we're communicating through our LCC emails, right, that we're just clear that that's a particular topic that you're requesting input on, and please do it by such and such a date or something like that. Just so we know.
Yeah, and I think generally, if there's a topic that you want to be surfaced, you can communicate that to Kevin and I as the chair and vice chair, which can you clarify, should that go through Celia or directly to the two of us if someone's suggesting a topic idea?
Sure.
Okay, so if someone wants to suggest a topic idea, please send that to Kevin and myself, CC probably Celia and the president. And then but I hope that we'll also have a process where we as a board can discuss what we want our priorities to be throughout the year. And so we'll get a chance to discuss that in meetings as setting, what do we want our future topics to be throughout the course.
Is part of that conversation part of our retreat in July?
I don't believe it's built in right now, but
Okay.
I think either at that meeting or at a September meeting, we'll try and build that into, what are we trying to accomplish together this year? Okay, with that, I think the last thing is the future meeting dates. So other than meeting on the 17th, are there any?
On the 17th.
So we're meeting at 6 PM on the 17th, is that right? Okay, and so other than that, then we'll stick with the current future meeting dates. And with that, we are adjourned. We will take a 10-minute break before executive session. Thank you.